Hi, I'm Ricky Smith, and I'm going to talk to you today about Maintenance Supervisor Best Practice. So, a best practice is a method or technique that has been generally accepted as superior to other known alternatives because it often produces results that are superior to those achieved by other means. Very simple. So, let's look at the 11 Maintenance Supervisor Leadership Principles. First, we got Rick Mellon, who was the former global maintenance and reliability leader for Anheuser-Busch InBev. He made a statement to me years ago. He said a great maintenance supervisor sees the relationship of poor performance and the lack of good maintenance routines. Poor performance always leads to the lack of maintenance routines or poor execution of existing routines. Absolutely, I agree with it 100%. So leadership principles: lead by example. Don't ask someone to do what you wouldn't do yourself. Be technically and tactically proficient. Know yourself and seek self-improvement. Be an expert in maintenance and reliability best practices. Manage with leading and lagging metrics for all maintenance processes, from preventive maintenance to failure reporting. Be 100% confident in your CMMS. In other words, understand the functionality of it and the limitations of it. Treat yourself as your equal and demonstrate respect, and always be humble to everyone in all situations. I know that's difficult, but sometimes you got to do it. Be a coach with your maintenance technicians. Never ask anyone to do something you wouldn't do yourself. Provide training to your maintenance techs in maintenance technician best practices, and allow them to become a certified maintenance and reliability technician. Become true partners with production leadership at all levels. So, what is a maintenance supervisor mission? A maintenance supervisor mission is to ensure all maintenance resources are aligned. That's the people, parts, materials, in order to optimize asset reliability at optimal cost. So a maintenance supervisor's vision. So a maintenance supervisor is the one person who leads all efforts in order to ensure the right work's performed at the right time to enable optimal rinse time and mitigate rework. Let's talk about maintenance supervisor guiding principles. So maintenance supervisor's focus is to ensure maintenance technicians' work is performed to specification and on time. Parts and material kitted and available for next day's work. What what would you add to these guiding principles? Think about it. So a guiding principle just basically says what are the boundaries that we work within. So think about this. So what does a day in the life of a proactive maintenance supervisor look like? Well, working with production on issues that maybe you have, that existing not just today, but could be over the last week or month. Check on maintenance techs to see if they need anything. A lot of times maintenance technicians get so wrapped up in a problem that they really can't solve it. So sometimes just checking on, say, hey, is there anything you need? Attend training. Some of the training that I recommend is when I used to use this, what they call the single point lessons or toolbox talks from maintenance technicians. I hosted one every week, and it came up with different topics that we were having issues with. Recognize great work by employees. I mean, it's nothing like a handshake saying, "Hey, thank you, appreciate what you're doing." Review equipment history with technicians. When you review equipment history with technicians, what it does is it pulls them into solving the problems that we have day to day. They know more about the equipment than anybody. Review issues in the plant. What kind of issues are we having in the plant? What do we do? Then we look at human reliability. Human reliability is related to the field of human factors engineering. Refers to the reliability of humans in fields such as, in this case, maintenance or manufacturing. Human human performance can be affected by many factors such as age, circadian rhythms, state of mind, physical health, attitude, and emotions, propensity for common mistakes, errors, and cognitive biases. I mean, you ever have a technician that it seems like everything they work on they can patch it fast, but it won't last. So human reliability, what we look at, factors that affect human performance: age, state of mind, physical health, attitude, that's probably the biggest one, emotions, propensity for common mistakes, errors. So how do you think planning and scheduling impacts human reliability? But planning and scheduling was designed by John Day at Alcoa Mount Holly. He designed it to mitigate human-induced failures. That's what he created it for. So we look at maintenance standards. The total work focused on PM execution should be 15% of the work. Percentage of total work focused on PDM execution, 15% of work. Percent of total work focused on PM. The results of PM is 15%. Now the total work focused on the results of PDM is 35%. We should be finding more on PDM than we do with PM. Percentage of planned work, 90%. Minimum elements required of a planned job, repeatable procedure, specifications and standards, special tools that may be needed, parts kitted. I call it eyes on parts. In other words, the supervisor and the planner, they both look and make sure the parts are there. The planner does the week prior. The supervisor does it starting on the first of the week before shift begins. Coordination required. Time estimates, duration of job, craft time. So what is some work management core beliefs? Well, planners remain focused on future work. If you call, I always say, if you want to know if you got a proactive planner, call them on the phone and say, hey, I need a part right now. If the next thing you hear is the dial tone, you got a proactive planner. Planners do not chase parts for jobs in progress. These things have to do with the maintenance supervisor. That's your role and responsibility. Maintenance supervisors and crew leads handle the current day's work and problems. Faced with a choice, a maintenance supervisor must concentrate on today's problems rather than work on the future, even tomorrow's activities. There's no such thing as a perfectly planned job. Continuous improvement is a must. This planned job, that's why a repeatable procedure is critical. All stakeholders must share the same priorities. Active communication on priorities is an absolute requirement. Let's talk about the philosophy of maintenance. Maintenance will be planned, scheduled, and managed. Cost as an investment versus a burden. Maintenance is an investment in the reliability and productivity of an organization. Manage versus supervisor. Empower everyone. We want everybody pulled in. Decisions made actions are made at the lowest level. Maintenance supervisors focus on enabling high wrench time or hands-on tool time. Failures are unacceptable. This is the one I like. It's unacceptable unless run to failure is the maintenance strategy. And run to failure is a maintenance strategy, but a lot of companies I visit, it's the dominant maintenance strategy they have. So warning, only permanent repairs made here. A few of the most common reasons that a plant does not follow best maintenance repair practices are maintenance personnel not provided the time to perform the repair to specification. That's why we have to have it when we schedule the job. We have to know how long it's going to take. Now, if it's a breakdown, that's different. So that's going to be who's going to put a barrier around the technicians when production keep asking how long is it going to take. Well, it has to do with a maintenance supervisor. Keep them back. Tell them what's going on. Keep them up front and what's happening so they feel comfortable that everything's going to be okay. Maintenance planning and scheduling not effective or exist in a proactive state. It's a problem. Repeatable procedures not in place to ensure lessons learned from failures are used in an optimized asset reliability. One of the things we used to do when I was a maintenance supervisor and later a maintenance manager is that when we had persistent problems on an asset, we'd bring those procedures up along with equipment history, match it to our repeatable procedures, and see what is wrong. Is the procedure wrong, or is there something else going on? Maintenance is reactive and does not follow the definition of maintenance, which is to protect, preserve, and prevent from failure or decline. You got to react. Typically, if maintenance is reactive, the plant itself is totally reactive. Management's not supportive and or does not understand the consequences of not following best practices. Real understanding must involve a knowledge of how much money is lost to the bottom line, and it is huge. Maintenance personnel do not have the requisite skills. This is a big problem. If we hire the wrong person, we can get stuck with them forever. We need to train them. The maintenance workforce lacks either the discipline or direction to follow best maintenance repair practices. So maintenance accountability, maintenance is accountable for maintainability of the plant, site, organization. This is a RACI chart. RACI charts of roles and responsibilities, and it makes it simple so everyone understands how you work together. So someone can't say, it's not my problem. So human-induced failures are 70 to 80% are human-induced failures. Causes: physical ability, competency, fatigue, stress, organizational, work pressure, long hours, insufficient supervision, plant and equipment, poor equipment condition. I mean, you can't maintain something that's not maintainable. Storeroom, making parts work which is not what was required to maintain or restore. So we got to use some other part, not the one that's going to help us get it going. I mean, to restore it, but we're going to patch it in that case. So remedies to use to mitigate human-induced failure: proactive maintenance supervisors, effective maintenance planning and scheduling, repeatable procedures, agreement with production on work schedule for the following week's work, locked storeroom, no parts checked out without a work order which is charged to an asset, formal training first, weekly single point lessons I mentioned, and then discipline and maintenance work execution. That's why I like on the procedure with my guys, they used to have to initial each step on the procedure. It doesn't take long to do. Okay, I finished that. I did it correctly. Yes, initial. Very simple. Proactive maintenance. We got two types of maintenance. We got reactive and proactive. So proactive maintenance, the technical meaning of maintenance, involves functional checks, servicing, repairing, and replacing necessary parts, equipment, machinery, and supporting utilities. Keep in existing state, preserve from failure, decline. Keep, preserve, protect. So we look at the maintenance workflow to optimize asset reliability. Well, a lot of our information first comes from our defect abnormality, so identified through operator care, preventive maintenance, work requests, and so on. And then we scope the job. We plan the job, we schedule it, technician picks up the parts from the kitted area, work is executed to specification, work order close out, and then it goes into the history where we can evolve to make this program even better. Now let's look at world-class maintenance standards or maintenance excellence. Maintenance spending as replacement and asset value is 2 to 2.5%. What does that mean? Well, if you look at the correlation between world-class and worst-in-class, then your spending typically is going to be from 4 to anywhere to 6%. That means you're spending a lot of money to get the maintenance that you're getting. Probably reactive. Budget compliance, plus or minus 5%. Overtime, straight time, 6 to 8%. I worked at this world-class plant. The first plant in the world ever certified as world-class at Alcoa Mount Holly. We had a lot of overtime when we first started up because it's a very large facility. We had a lot of issues with new equipment, new technology, but once it got to a certain point, we were making a lot of money. And be honest with you, everybody was paid well. So we didn't want the overtime. We really didn't want it. Number of craft, so 4 or less, not sure quite what they meant by that one. The planners per tradesperson, 1 planner per 20 tradesperson. Absenteeism was low. Backlog in weeks. This is ready schedule backlog, 2 to 3 weeks. Schedule compliance by day, by hour, 90 to 100%. Emergency urgent work. This is in labor hours is less than 10%. Percent of PM and PDM to all work orders. So this is the work. This is the work orders that come, the work that comes from the work orders and so on. It's 30%. PM compliance, 95 to 100%. Inventory accuracy, 95 to 100. Inventory turns. How often does the parts turn in? And that's important to know because if a part's not turning, something, unless it's an insurance spare, it should be moving out of the storeroom. But if it starts to increase, that means we got a problem somewhere. And maintenance training dollars above 6%, we were trained very well. I'm going to give you an example of a maintenance supervisor scorecard. This came from a company that I was working with, the maintenance supervisor, that I was specifically working with. This was what his scorecard was. He wanted the maintenance technicians to know how they were doing. So he started off, he has the best practice. He defined maintenance schedule performance, so schedule compliance, best practice, what he defined best practice, 70%. So you look at year to date, 67%, but at that 1 week, he had 62%. Maintenance break-in work, less than 15% is best practice for him. You notice on 10/12, so that's October 12th, 2020, he was at 18%, break-in work 38%, year to date 33%, schedule compliance, and so on. This was a big deal because he had this up where his technicians could see how well their work was performing. So what is wrench time and how does it impact maintenance? Wrench time is hands-on tool time. Typically, wrench time is 5 to 15%, world-class 55 to 65%. The wrench time is hands-on tools, not traveling looking for parts and finding Jimmy and finding tools and so on. Maintenance cost of replacement asset value is optimized. Worst in class 69%, world class 1.7 to 3.4%. So I'm going to give you a wrench time example, okay? So how does a typical maintenance day is spent? So direct labor hours, I got 10 technicians times 40 hours. That's 400 labor hours. Indirect time, first is traveling. So out of these technicians, 67 hours, are spent traveling from point A to B or C to D or wherever. Looking for parts, 32 hours. Looking for tools, 28 hours. Looking for information. Who's got the information? Jimmy's got the information. But where's Jimmy? I think he's on the other side of the plant. Okay. Waiting on production, 79%. Looking for maintenance leadership, 22%. Traveling to and from job site, 67%. So the indirect labor hours, 319. So direct labor hours is 400 labor hours. That's 10 techs times 40 hours of 400 labor hours. 319 indirect. That means we actually have 81 hours of direct labor. Okay. So our wrench time in this case, if we look at it, it's 25%. So direct labor hours, 81 by total labor hours, 319 is 25%. World-class wrench time is 55 to 65%. Let's talk about maintenance plan work. This is work that's gone through a formal planning process to identify labor, materials, tools, safety requirements. This information is assembled into a job plan package and communicated to the craft workers by maintenance supervisor prior to the start of work. Planning is critical to success of precision maintenance, doing things the right way at the right time. Maintenance scheduling is the win and involves assigning all required resources to perform the work at the optimal time to facilitate the most efficient execution of work. So maintenance planners and maintenance supervisors should be trained in maintenance planning and scheduling. Absolutely, it should go through the same training. Maintenance planners and maintenance supervisors make the most impact on increasing wrench time and thus need the same knowledge in planning and scheduling. This is one team. Now, defining roles and responsibilities using RACI. RACI chart is the R is responsible, can be multiple people. The A is accountable. The buck stops here. Can only be one person for the task. So that's who we go to if we got a problem. Okay. The C is consulted. Two-way communication. Form, one-way communication. No reply expected nor accepted. So what is RACI? RACI is a process which aligns all stakeholders focused on a specific process. RACI's objective is to ensure everyone knows their contribution to a specific process. No one can say, that's not my job. I didn't know I was responsible. So here's an example, proactive maintenance, roles and responsibilities. So we look at, across the top on the on the horizontal, you see the positions, maintenance supervisor, maintenance manager, planner, stores, management, production supervisor, maintenance tech, CMMS administrator, plant manager. So I'm going to go down to planning. Who's accountable? The buck stops here. It's going to be one person. If planning's not working, then we go see the maintenance manager, okay? Who's the doer is the planner. And really, I don't see the supervisor is consulted, yes, okay. Supervisor also consulted for the scheduling. The scheduling meeting is the doer in the meeting, and so on. So it makes it real simple when you got a RACI chart set up for someone. It makes it much easier. Now, maintenance supervisors focus on human-induced failures. I mentioned that. So here's the maintenance task. So we got the maintenance task, standard for the task, required best practices, consequences not following best practices, and the probability of failures. All right. So we got lubricate bearing. So the standard is lubricate interval time based plus or minus 10% variance. Required best practices, clean fittings, clean the end of grease gun. Why do you do that? To make sure you don't get contamination into the bearing. All it takes is 1 grain of sand or dirt or silicon, whatever you want to call it, gets into that bearing and it's going to start failing immediately. Lubricate the proper amount and right type of lubricant. Lubricate within the variance of frequency. So what is consequence of not following best practice? Early bearing failure, reduced life by 20 to 80%. Probability of future failures, 100%. And then we got V-belts. Measure the tension of V-belts, through tension and deflection, utilizing the belt tension gauge. Identify the proper tension and deflection for the belt for required best practices. Set tension to specification. Consequences, premature belt failures through rapid belt wear or total belt failure. Premature bearing failure of driven or driver or driven unit. What's the probability? 100%, 20 versus 1. So let's talk about repeatable procedures. What's the cost of not having repeatable procedures? So these are the procedures you can give to any technician and they'll do the work the same way. So what's the cost of it? If you look at the maintenance cost, I mentioned this before, the replacement asset value, I could tell you companies that don't have repeatable procedures, their maintenance cost is out of control. So attributes of a typical organization versus world-class maintenance organization. Typical attributes, all maintenance work is not captured by a work order. Maintenance work is based on the technician's knowledge. Maintenance procedures are not repeatable. Example, check chain drive, lubricate bearing, that's all it says. So maintenance rework is high. So rework is corrective work done on previously maintained equipment that has prematurely failed due to maintenance operations of material problems. The typical cause of rework are maintenance operational material quality issues. World-class maintenance attributes, all planned scheduled maintenance work using repeatable procedures. When repeat failures occur, maintenance procedures are analyzed to determine the root cause of the problem. Maintenance rework is minimal and controlled. Maintenance cost is controlled. Now we talk about repeatable procedures, the requirements for writing procedures to ensure repeatability. We got to define best practice. Because once we define the best practice, because all work we have we'll see again. We want consistency and continuity. No matter what technician I give it to, they can do it to specification. Reinforces best practice. So if new information presents itself, you don't have to worry what best practice is. It's going to be on that procedure. Define training and certification. You got new technicians coming to work. You're given the procedure with one of the good techs, and all they do is observe them, saying, okay, follow the procedure. It enables quality, safety, and environmental compliance. There's no doubt about it. So what are the steps to write or rewrite a PM corrective maintenance procedures? First thing you do is you assemble a cross-functional team. You want to have people that have different ways of looking at it. Step 2, provide PMs of corrective maintenance on the first asset, preferably one with the most problems. Review the work order history for the past 30, 60, 90 days. Provide a procedure template for rewriting this corrective or PM procedure. And then rewrite corrective maintenance PM based on specific criteria. All right. The most you want to have to be the minimum you need to have on each step on that procedure would be a noun, adjective, and a verb. You don't need long, lengthy sentences. If you do, people don't read it. Okay. Then measure the effectiveness of the procedure. Typically, you're going to measure it by rework. So how can maintenance supervisors, how can they mitigate human-induced failures? You know, especially when 80% of equipment failures are human induced, meaning the failures caused by actions of people. It's by paying attention, by focusing on, by making sure they're following their procedures. Focus on those procedures, making sure they're following them. Examples of human induced failures: repairs are not made with repeatable procedures, so everyone does it a little or a lot differently, creating an uncontrollable deviation to the reliability of the equipment. Mechanic 1 is an example: lubricates an asset, follows a repeatable procedure, does the job the right way, resulting in mean time between failure far exceeds expectation. Mechanic 2 lubricates the same equipment without a procedure, but just does it like he always has. Not knowing the proper contamination control method, MTBF is out of control, but no one knows it because it's not measured. Maintenance supervisors can mitigate human-induced failures through inspecting work technicians are performing and asking questions such as, hey, how things going? Any problems with the repair or the work you're doing? Do you need any extra help? Interesting call. Maintenance supervisors and technicians interaction. One-on-one interaction between supervisors and technicians are critical success. Respect is critical between supervisor and technicians, must be displayed on both sides. Maintenance supervisors should never ask a technician to execute any task that is not understood by both parties. So attributes of a proactive maintenance technician ensures all work is executed to specifications. Perform preventive maintenance as a controlled experiment. In other words, you put the equipment in a controlled state and do certain things to get a certain outcome. They always seek, to advance their technical knowledge through on-site, off-site, and vendor training. If a patch is required on a rush or emergency job, they always write a corrective maintenance work order so the equipment can be restored to specification at a later date. Arrives at work 100% on time. If they observe equipment not performing to specification or operator having a problem, they notify their supervisor immediately of the problem. So what is motivation? Motivation is a reason for actions, willingness, and goals. Motivation is derived from the word motive, or the need to require that requires satisfaction. These needs, wants, or desires may be acquired through influence of culture, society, lifestyle, or maybe generally innate to you because maybe you learn it from your family, from your parents. Maintenance supervisors are critical to motivating maintenance technicians. I mean, without a good maintenance supervisor, your technicians aren't going to be happy. They're not going to be motivated. So some proven motivation concepts provide people a great place to work, offer opportunities for self-development, foster collaboration with the team, no I in the word team, encourages happiness, don't punish failure, select clear goals, never show anger or discouragement to your subordinate. Now, I have to tell you, as a former maintenance supervisor, sometimes I got a little stress sometimes because of what an action one of my technicians did. So I have to walk around outside the plant and come back. At the time it was a pager. I'd leave my pager on my desk and I'd walk around the plant. By the time I came back, I was cooled down. I didn't feel like I had to, get excited about it. Never ask someone to do something you wouldn't do yourself. Set the example. Give people their score. We want to have a scorecard that people can see how well they're doing. All right. So any questions? I've got this program coming up, Maintenance Excellence for Maintenance Supervisors, August 16th to 18th in Asheville, North Carolina. You can email me at rsmith@worldclassmaintenance.org. If you want it brought to your site, you can also email me there, and I'll be glad to see you, as long as it's in North America. So you have a great day, and hope you enjoyed this presentation. Goodbye.